Sometimes in boating, we just wind up in places we really don't want to be. Sometimes it's because we center a little too hard, sometimes maybe it's because we missed the channel marker, or maybe in this case he probably did both. But welcome back, crew, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Other times we find ourselves in spots we don't want to be in just because we made a silly mistake. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but it wasn't well thought out. Now it appears our guy here wound up in the water and maybe wasn't wearing the kill switch because the boat kept on its way. And speaking of winding up in the water, always gotta be careful when you got your phone out there on the water because you never know when it's taking a swim as well. And speaking of swimming, this isn't something we usually see this deep in the water. Now speaking of swimming, you always want to try and avoid swimming in high traffic areas, but if you want to go wakeboarding them, that's okay. Now, of course, it makes sense that boating and swimming would go hand in hand. I mean, nothing like getting out there in your local waterway and enjoying a day out on the boat and going ahead and taking a dip in the water. But the last thing you want to do is have your boat take a dip in the water when you're out there trying to enjoy the day. Pretty sure it looks like this one's going under in this situation. She's kind of taking a beating out here. At first I thought maybe she was at anchor taking a beating in the storm, but the sails wouldn't be up in that situation. And speaking of taking a beating, nothing like working your tail off, trying to get the job done, only to take that beating because you're a little late to the game. Another kind of beating you can take out on the water sometimes, well, that's getting out there and getting on a tube when you've got a boneheaded boater behind the helm. In all likelihood at some point in time, he's sending everybody flying. Another kind of beating you can take out there on the boat, that's just gonna be from the sun. Being out there and hanging out in the sun all day long will absolutely take it out of you. But another way to go ahead and catch a beating on the boat is going through and cutting all the fishing lines. Now, of course, there are plenty of ways to have a rough day out on the water, and it doesn't always mean you're gonna be on the boat. At least that rough part's not always going to start on the boat. Many times, the rough day on the water will begin well before you actually even get the boat launched, or in some cases when you think the vehicle is a boat, kind of like this guy. It definitely is interesting to see some of these people truly out there testing their Cybertrucks to the limits to see if they really can float like old Elon said way back in the day. I even saw Whistling Diesel doing the exact same thing in a video he put out recently where they bought an old Cybertruck that had a battery issue and decided they were going to go ahead and try and run it across some rivers. Surprisingly, it actually did wind up floating, but not unsurprisingly, it was taking on water while he was trying to do it. I don't know whether this crew's taking on water or not, but man, it's interesting to see them out there. You can tell the way they're kind of bouncing. The vehicle's floating a little bit, but it's definitely not a boat. I definitely wouldn't try crossing any kind of real waterways with it, but our guy somehow winds up getting this thing all the way back up to the boat ramp. All good. Now, of course, these crews wish they could say the same thing, that it's gonna wind up all good, but as you're about to witness as this crew tries to pull everybody out, our guy's pretty darn stuck right here. Even with two other trucks pulling, the odds of him getting out before the tide comes up probably aren't all that great. Fortunately, they stopped trying to pull, because if they would have kept going, I have to imagine we wouldn't have one stuck truck, we'd have three. But here it looks like they're just at the breaking point where the other two might be able to still get out. But still, you can tell even here on the second attempt, it's not a whole lot better than the first, and I got a feeling that white truck's gonna be stuck for quite some time. I mean, the beach is a crazy place to take a vehicle. Sure, it's not uncommon to see us come rolling up onto the beach with a boat, but to roll up there with your truck, you're only asking for trouble most of the time. Like, I got a feeling here, our guy got into the surf, and this is another one of those spots where he's probably in a world of hurt. unfortunately, at the end of this clip, a pro shows up and is able to help get him out before he winds up in too much trouble. And speaking of the pros, that's not somebody that we often think of having boneheaded moments out on the water, but I'll tell you what, the pro mariners are just as susceptible to it as the rest of us. They spend more time out on the water than me and you combined, which means they probably see a lot more bad things happen. Where I'm confused is the other two guys who were on deck ran, but our dude still sitting here at the bow decided he's gonna hang out to see what happens, like anything else good's coming from this. Now finally, after the second one rolls, our guy says, you know what, this is probably not a good spot to be, let me go ahead and be out of here. Speaking of not good spot to be, I don't know that I necessarily want to be out here on this boat in this weather. Now our guy in this next clip's a little faster than the guy from our first clip who decided to get out of the way. Here he looks out there and says, yep, no, bad idea, and goes straight back in. This serves as that reminder that you gotta keep your head on a swivel out there on the water because you never know when things are gonna go wrong. I mean, one minute you're out there minding your own business, just cruising along, and the next thing you know, something winds up in your way. And sometimes you even gotta keep that head on a swivel while you're at the dock. Kind of like this crew, apparently they missed the crew boat to get back out to work and, well, now they had to take the long way home. And speaking of the long way home, this is definitely not the long tow home that I would want to participate on. I think if I was on the tugboat that was pulling this, I probably would look at Captain and be like, yep, just let me off, we're good. Because that line's so tight, there's no way they're ever getting that off if they need to. And speaking of getting off, this crew wants nothing more than just to be off this boat. Hard to tell from these images, but the boat is basically capsizing at the dock, as you can see here. And now everybody's going ahead and making that scramble to get the heck out of there as quickly as they can. Now this guy's showing you another way you can leave the vessel in an emergency if you ever need to. Now sometimes it's not just the pro mariners we see out there getting it done, sometimes it's those Home Depot pros we see out there getting it done. Truck in the shop, no worries, your Home Depot pro knows exactly how to get that boat down to the ramp and back into the water. And then of course sometimes you might not need a tow vehicle altogether. I mean, this contraption here can't weigh more than 100 to 150 pounds, which means separate, you could probably throw this in the back of a Toyota Corolla, hang the kayak off the roof, and be good to go. And speaking of good to go, we're getting out of here. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up at Broncos Guru on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Django Mike, Tina Hernandez, Blaine Wagner, Nautical Quest Adventures, Ian Thompson, and Big Pimpin' did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.